I can't kill dragons.
But you will.
So I'm going to say that you didn't screw up. You did a fantastic job. Seriously, congrats.
Thank you. That's a relief.
I think people are going to love it. So I have so many questions, but I have a few things before we get into the movie. I'm obsessed with getting more people to see movies in movie theaters. So I'm curious, do you have a favorite movie theater?
Well, I suppose my favorite movie theater is any IMAX screen. Yeah, I will always go to an IMAX if it's being presented as such, because I love being bombarded by the format.
You said the right answer, any IMAX screen. But I will admit, as a huge IMAX fan, some screens are better than others. But this movie specifically is, I guess it's full screen IMAX. How much of the movie is full screen?
We have almost an hour out of our 2-hour runtime. It might even be more than an hour of anything that's sort of action, immersive. We kept the intimate dialogue scenes in 239 scope, but then we kind of blew it open for all the training scenes, the flying scenes, the battle scenes. And so it's where you really you get hit with the maximum impact of all that's going on.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe this is the first time you've directed a big live action movie like this. So
Correct.
You've directed a lot of animation, and I'm so curious, what did you learn making your first live action film that sort of maybe was unexpected, or things you didn't, you know what I mean? Like surprising to learn about the process.
Yeah, I'd been prepping myself for years, just watching behind the scenes making of documentaries and Project Greenlight and all that. So I knew the process. And I knew that when it came to principal photography, you had to be super prepared, because the decisions had to happen in a hurry and you had to be very committal. The thing that I wasn't quite prepared for was how much magic happens when you entrust the scene to actors and let them play out their own cadence. And, new lines might come in, other lines might disappear. And there's sort of this dance of all of the body language as well, and the silences. It's very different to animation, where we craft the performance. We literally, cut up lines to make our favorite line and then put it in the hands of the animators. But this is sort of, you prep, and then you allow yourself to be surprised.
One of the things that I loved is the way you shot the flying sequences. Bill Pope is your cinematographer. And from what I understand, you were using like practical stuff with gimbals, and it looked fantastic. Can you sort of talk about the way you guys shot the flying sequences? Sure.
The flying sequences, we pushed them all to the end of the schedule, where we were in a blue screen stage for about a month. And yes, they had built 6-axis gimbals, which were about 10 feet tall. But on top of those, they built dragon busts, which were essentially chest, neck, and head fully articulated. And that could be controlled by the animation that had already previously been done for flight cycles, or it could be done live with joysticks. So when you had someone like Mason Thames sitting in his saddle on top of the Toothless buck, on top of a gimbal 15 feet in the air, it meant that every movement that the dragon did, if it was diving or ascending or rolling or pitching, Mason would move with it like a jockey on a horse. And it just gave it very convincing movement that could then be applied to the animation. And that was something that hadn't been done before.
One of the things that I commend you guys on is daylight VFX shots are tricky, because you really got to get the lighting right. Otherwise it looks effing horrible. But this looks fantastic. So talk a little bit about pulling off daylight VFX shots and making it look believable.
The thing we learned about daylight VFX is that shoot it outside, shoot it in a parking lot. The light is going to be so much better, because you're getting the ambient broad spread of the light. When you have to do it on a stage like we did with the gimbal, it's really tricky because of the controlled environment. We were forced to do that in blue screen, and they lit it as best they could. But there was so much adjustment we had to do afterward in terms of playing with the depth of field, with the atmosphere, with taking down highlights or pushing highlights. It's incredibly difficult to make it merry. And I'm glad that you've spotted that, because hats off to the wizards at Frame Store for their patience and dedication to making those shots actually work.
So it's generally, I speak to people and they're like, well, we hope to make a sequel. But you're in the rare boat of the studio. Listen, the movie's fantastic. Studio fully believes in it, and they've already said, let's make a sequel. Do you envision yourself? Do you think if you get to do 3, you're gonna, do you envision yourself helming all of these?
I try not to make plans in my future because it never works out the way I planned for it. But yeah, will I be 85 years old and still making How to Train Your Dragon movies? I don't know. I do have other aspirations. But again, I'm so protective of it. I don't want to see somebody else's version of the movies I've made.
I really want your versions of these movies. But the one thing is like, I'm wondering, because the cast is going to get older, is like, in your ideal world, would it be like every other year, like one of these is coming out in theaters? So like to be able to get through it and also keep the audience invested?
Sure. I mean, we did the animated movie as a trilogy because my pitch from the discussion, the first discussion of a sequel, my pitch was, let's do 3 movies so we can do a 3-act coming of age. And we end in the place where Cressida Cowell's books began, which is Hiccup as an adult reflecting back on a time when there were dragons. I loved the mystery and it was poignant. And so that became a goal. But in live action, sure. I mean, the story could continue. It doesn't have to stop where it stops, but there is something kind of nice about it. And those are the movies I love, whether it's E.T. or Harold and Maude or, Titanic even. It's like stories of characters coming together for a moment in time and being forever changed when they part ways. That continues to be a theme for me that I hold dear and wanted to apply to this.
I'm so curious. It's a completely different question. Whatever happened with your live action Micronauts movie?
Micronauts just got stalled. It got stalled because there's been a changing of hands. Oh, yeah. And so Hasbro had their own film division. Paramount was involved. They then partnered with E1 and now they're back to having their own film division. And so in all of those exchanges, everybody has different ideas of what a Micronauts movie should be. And so it continues to sort of move along slowly.
Is it one of these things where you actually did the script and got far along, or was it sort of like, no, it's just in the infancy?
I did a script. Yeah, I did a script back when it was, I forget the name of the production company, but yeah, it just sort of changed as production companies kind of changed hands. And so there were new ambitions and new ideas of what the movie should be. And so I continue to ride that slow train of development just to see, where everyone aligns.
I have to stop. I'm out of time. I just want to say congrats. And really, you did a fantastic job.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.